Hey everybody, this is Eno and welcome to part 2 of the big giveaway follow-up video answering your questions. So in the first video that I posted yesterday, I answered the most common, most popular questions that I received in the comment section of that video. In this video, I'm going to answer the questions that I chose as my favorite questions, sort of the finalists. And the winner of the big giveaway was chosen from this stack of questions. So right now I'm going to read through each question and answer each question individually for all of you to enjoy. Alright, so the first question here was from BA Adventures. And it was, hey there Eno, when was the first time you got drunk? I'm hoping there's a good story behind it. Well, yeah, I guess. I did answer this question for you in the comment section. I'm sure you read it, but I chose it as one of my favorite questions, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it here. So the very first time that I got drunk that I recall, and I don't even recall it all that well, I was probably about 14, 15 years old, somewhere around there. And in my previous video, I mentioned that I had gotten into sort of bushcraft and woodcraft by doing something called historical trekking or primitive trekking. And so I went to this event, and there was a guy there. His name was Herbie, and he was a short, very rotund man. He was probably about as wide as he was tall. And he looked like, if I could give you a mental image of it, he looked like Santa Claus's redneck brother. Is exactly what he looked like. And he was a moonshiner, and he had a couple of jugs of his shine. He was very, very gracious with it and very giving with his shine. And if you walked by him, he'd put his arm around you and fill up your cup or your mouth or whatever you could possibly pour shine into with shine. And so he filled up my cup with some moonshine, and then he also had, in his other hand, he had a bottle of cherry soda, like red cherry soda. It was like in this pitcher, and he would cut it with that. And so you had this like really awful cocktail. And I drank, I don't even know how many of these things I drank. And I left my pants by the fire. I fell asleep like half in, half out of my tent. So in the middle of the night, I got up and had to go to the bathroom. So I went to this bush that was near my tent, and I pissed in the bush, and then I barfed in the bush, and then I passed out in the bush. And then a few hours later, I woke up in the bush. And it was not a very good bush. And so I was probably hungover for like 2 or 3 days after this. It was just the worst. And it was a long time after that before I could drink like hard liquor, which was probably a good thing. And to this day, I still, like, moonshine doesn't really appeal to me. So this next one is from Robert Kendrill. Thank you, Robert. As a brand new prepper, what is the most important thing to start as a prepper? I know you did a video about this a while ago. I'm just curious if your thoughts about it have changed. Thank you, and keep up all the amazing videos. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. My philosophies really haven't changed so much since I did the original sort of how to start prepping videos that I did a number of years ago. And my basic philosophy on those hasn't really changed. I think the only thing that's probably changed is the approach that I would use to communicate those points. I probably wouldn't do it the same now as I did back then. But I think the overarching sort of philosophy there hasn't changed. I think I really stick to the basics with that kind of stuff when it comes to starting out prepping. If you're going from not doing any preparedness to now, okay, I want to start prepping, I concentrate on the basics, getting your physical self in order. So, getting healthy, exercise, take care of yourself, eat well, go to your doctor, go to your dentist, get yourself checked out. Next is get your financial self in order. Beyond that, it's putting in a basic supply of, I usually shoot for about 2 weeks. When you first start out, supply of food and water and supplies in your house. How could you, if something happened, could you make it 2 weeks in your house without any help? Different people have different lifestyles and ways of looking at this. So, sometimes it's a little bit more in your face than others. But, really putting in that 2 week supply of food and water and supplies in your house, getting your physical self in order, getting your financial self in order, and then just going out and learning things, learning new skills. Get out, start hiking, start camping, being comfortable with tools, fixing up your house, make sure it's good to go. So once you kind of get that initial start, your physical self, your financial self, and then kind of working in that 2-week supply. Start taking that 2-week supply out more. Take it out to a month, take it out to 2 months. You know, it's a good thing to do. Obviously, that depends on what kind of space you have and what kind of financial ability you have to build that up. You don't have to do it overnight. Just a few extra cans of food, a little extra tube of toothpaste, you know, just a little bit at a time. Another case of water or whatever, whatever you can do to just add to it a little bit at a time and just continuously build it up. So our next one here is from David Littleton. What's the best way to get your wife into prepping when she don't think nothing bad will happen? I get this question, or a form of this question, quite often. How do I get family members who don't see it or don't understand it or don't believe in prepping? How can I get them to prep? Or, you know, I hear from people and say, you know, my wife thinks I'm crazy. I'm the only one in my family that's prepping. Or sometimes it's younger people who have parents or something like that, and they're into it, but the rest of their family isn't. How do you deal with that? How do you impress others to sort of come over to your side? And I think that's tough. I mean, people just have different worldviews. And being a preparedness-minded person and a prepper is definitely a worldview. And not everybody is going to share that. And that's nothing to say that one's right, one's wrong. I mean, obviously, everyone's going to think that they're right. Self-justification is the second strongest human drive. But it's no good to go chipping away at that wall. But where I usually suggest people start with that sort of thing, for instance, if you have a significant other that isn't into preparedness and prepping, and you kind of want to start down that path, or you have already started down that path and are looking for ways to include your family into that more, is really just go with the basics. You know, point out, the Red Cross and FEMA suggest that we have 2 weeks of food and water and supplies in our home at all times. They suggest that we have a basic first aid kit. You know, they suggest that we have a planned route to a safe place other than our home. You know, maybe it's a family member's house or something like that, or somebody that lives in another state or something like that. You know, maybe we should talk about these things. You know, do we have important documentation that's stored off-site, maybe at somebody else's home or in a safety deposit box or something like that? So start with those basic things, and again, bring up that, you know, these are the things that the Red Cross and FEMA suggest that every American do. This is not crazy prepper stuff. This is what we all should be doing. And that's kind of a good place to start. And a lot of times, once they kind of see that, hey, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, the door starts opening, the walls start coming down, and it becomes something that you can begin to talk about a little bit more freely in your relationship. So that's where I would suggest start. Okay, our next question comes from Track Kyle. What type of bag do you recommend for a child bug out / equipment? Thank you very much, Track Kyle. I appreciate it. This for me is kind of a tough question for me to really... it's an easy question for me to answer, but I come at it from a specific viewpoint. If you, get displaced from your home and you have 5 kids, you know, your options are highly limited as far as what you can really do with that. And you might be looking at, you know, becoming a refugee, unfortunately. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. Everybody looks at that as like, that's just death, you know, and then... No, I don't think so. It's just something. It's an experience that some people are going to have, and at some point in time, some people have to understand that that probably is going to be the experience that they would have in those types of situations. So you would want to prepare specifically for those. You know, stocking in medical supplies and sanitation supplies, because that's probably where you're going to end up. And that's not to say that you're better or worse than anybody else. It's just that your situation is probably going to be different. I think that's, you know, not everybody's going to be the lone wolf bushcrafting dude in the woods who's just kicking ass. I mean, that's just not where we're all going to be. And it's funny too, like, you know, bug out bags are kind of ironic in a way too, because it's a lot of times the first thing that we do in preparedness. It's sort of the gateway. It's a lot of people look at it as like the first thing you should do when you start prepping. You build a bug out bag, but in reality, it's like the last thing you're ever going to need. But at the same time, I think there's a certain time and place for them. And it doesn't always have to be right at the beginning. And I certainly don't think that that time and place is when you're a kid. Now, that's not to say that you can't start getting them into the idea of having a bug out bag, and that this is normal and fun stuff and is something that's good. And that might mean, in my opinion, Starting them off with letting them choose their own bag, letting them choose what goes in the bag. Yeah, sure, they're probably going to have a Winnie the Pooh bag full of toys and candy, but that's okay. They don't need to have, equipment with them, all right? That's your job as their father, okay? You pick a little kit and pack in the things that you would specifically need for your children. That's your responsibility, okay? That's not their responsibility. For them, it's beginning to instill that mindset that we do want to have a little bag with some clothes and some fun things in it, and that we can take with us in case something happens, in case the house catches on fire and we have to leave quickly or something like that. And again, it's probably not going to be a very effective survival tool, but that's where the kids should be sort of mentally in the game when it comes to that. As they get older, you can start bringing them more and more into the fold. So moving on to the next one, Steve Tabor. Steve Tabor asks, I love this one. Steve Tabor asks, what type of martial arts training is best for a beginner prepper? I get to talk about martial arts, one of my favorite topics that I never talk about on my channel. So for those of you that don't know, I'm an avid martial artist. I'm involved in mainly Hapkido and a little bit of Taekwondo. I have actually a fairly extensive Taekwondo background, but mainly training in Hapkido now, and also in Krav Maga. Been training in the martial arts for a very long time, and it's a very big part of what I do. And I obviously advocate people training in the martial arts. So he asks the perfect question. Steve, what type of training do I recommend? I've always said the best martial art is the one that you enjoy. And if you enjoy it, means you're going to go more, you're going to enjoy it more, you're going to have more fun, you're going to go to the training more often, you're going to be involved in it longer. It's going to be something you're going to stick with because you like it, and you're going to be more effective. But the real kicker here is context, 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 context. When it comes to the martial arts, context is everything. I don't care what you choose to get involved in, whether it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Taekwondo or traditional karate, or if it's Muay Thai or Hapkido, which Hapkido kind of only has one context, or Krav Maga, which again kind of only has one context. Doesn't really matter what you get into, you just have to make sure that the context that you're training in is the appropriate context for you. And for preppers, it should be self-defense. That's your context. Now there are many other contexts of the martial arts. There is, for instance, sport competition like Olympic Taekwondo or UFC MMA. Those types of things. Those are not self-defense. They don't do us much good for self-defense. Is there some crossover? Yeah, a punch is a punch, a kick is a kick. But the outcomes of those two situations are extremely different. The biggest one is in sport competition, your objective is to win. And to win is to defeat or knock out or submit your opponent. In self-defense, that is not even on the radar of what we're trying to do. In a self-defense situation, winning is a totally different concept. Winning is not even getting yourself involved in the situation in the first place. If you, in a self-defense context, if you looked at it as the same way as a UFC fight, if I didn't show up for the UFC fight and therefore didn't get beat up, I'm the grand champion. That's the whole point of self-defense. If you can avoid it in the first place, you're there, man. That's the best kind of self-defense. Being able to have situational awareness, recognize risks and potential problem situations when they arise so you can avoid them in the first place is like a huge part of good self-defense training. There's that thing out there that says 90% of fights like go to the ground, so everybody should learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the worst place you should be in a fight is on the ground, and you should never go there intentionally. You should learn ground fighting because it helps you, if you do get taken to the ground, to be able to disengage and get back up. The biggest thing you're worried about in those situations is multiple attackers. And a lot of times people, if they're going to jump you or get in a fight with you, they're going to do so because they believe they have the edge on you. And let's face it, if you're a grown man who's bigger and strong, and they're probably going to be more than one of them. And so you're not going to be wanting to take a single one to the ground, because as soon as you do, his buddies are going to start kicking you in the head. Even if he doesn't have necessarily any buddies, there's always that mob mentality that happens too. If you get in a situation in public and you take a person to the ground, and next thing you know, somebody over here who's got 6 beers in him already and he just wants to be part of the fun and runs up to you and soccer ball kicks you in the head while you're on the ground wrestling this other dude. And technically he's not part of the fight, but he just jumps in. There's that mob mentality. And now you're drinking food out of a straw, or worse, might even be dead. Ground fighting is important, but I typically suggest if self-defense or like MMA, UFC training really has to be much more self-defense oriented and not submission oriented. You have to be up, you have to be mobile, you have to be looking for those opportunities to escape. That's what you need to be concentrating on in self-defense. So self-defense context is the most important thing. Again, not sport competition, things like that. They're just not going to lead you down the right path. They're going to give you a false sense of what the conclusion of the fight should be. And there's other contexts that you can train into. For instance, a good workout, physical fitness, mental fitness and mental health, your grandma doing Tai Chi on Saturday mornings in the park kind of thing. There's all different sorts of contexts that the martial arts can exist in. And all of these are great benefits, and all of these are things that you can enjoy. So just because you start in the martial arts doesn't mean you always have to train a certain context. It doesn't mean you always have to be training self-defense. You can go and train for the hell of it because you like it and you enjoy it, and it's fun, and it improves your life, and improves your wellness, and improves your mindset, and you enjoy the place and you like spending time there. But you just have to understand, you yourself in your own head, that okay, these are those other contexts of martial arts. I'm not learning self-defense right now. And then when you do get that context of self-defense, okay, this is stuff that I use for self-defense. Okay, so not only do you have to have a school that understands there's different contexts to the martial arts, and we have to not confuse them. Okay, we can't be training Olympic Taekwondo as street self-defense because they're just not the same thing. And likewise, you have to understand that practicing this form is not self-defense, but practicing this form makes me a better martial artist. That's fine. Okay. This next one is from Ted Z. I consider myself a generous person, but in the shit hits the fan situation, I am not prepared to supply every loved one I know. If the time should ever come, it would be tough to say no. I'd like to help everyone, but realize I cannot. Given a limitation of resources, how do you manage that concern today, or the appeal for help if the time should ever come? That is an excellent question. In fact, that's probably one of the most thoughtful questions that I got. And it's one of the reasons why I chose it. It's a great question, Ted. Thank you very much. And I've talked about this on the channel before. OPSEC is super important, and nobody should know, kind of thing. But in reality, everyone's gonna know. Your friends are gonna know. Being a good prepper is about being community-minded, in my opinion. So obviously, if something happens, a shit hits the fan situation happens, your neighbor didn't prepare, the guy across the street didn't prepare, your brother didn't prepare, your sister's family didn't prepare. Now they're all rapping on your door. What do? You don't have the ability and the resources to be supplying all these people. What do you do? And yeah, guess what? You can't just sit in your front door with a rifle and shoot everybody that comes up to it. It's not going to work that way. In reality, what do you do? Well, the best thing to do is to be involved in your community, so that if the shit hits the fan, there are community resources that you are involved in that can help the community as a whole. Maybe that's through your church. Maybe that's through local government or a local organization. So you can have a place for people to go, that you can have resources for food and supplies that people can go get. So that it's not up to you personally to supply these people, but you're involved in helping out your community. So maybe when the shit hits the fan, that means you're going to drive down to your church and start handing out blankets and handing out bottles of water and helping get people back on their feet. That's one way you can look at it. The other way you can look at it, sort of a more internal, practical purpose, if it's like how do I share what I have with other people? I think building giveaway buckets is a perfect solution to this issue. Now, you're not going to, set somebody for life with one of these things. But if you take a standard 5-gallon bucket and you fill it with some basic supplies, maybe a small first aid kit, some food, some water, basic supplies that you can give to someone, and somebody raps on your door and goes, hey, I know you're a prepper, or hey, do you have anything that you can spare for me? You can say, yeah, you know what? Take this. You can have this. This will keep you alive for the next few days. Here's clean water, here's some sanitation in there. There's a first aid kit in there. There you go. This will help you. This will get you on your way. This will get you out of this area. This will give you enough food and water that you can leave this town and get hopefully someplace that's safe or whatever. It's really hard to predict these situations, and the people that like to play the horrible hypotheticals, well, what if this happens, and what if that happens, oh, that's never going to work. The people that play those games are going to shoot that stuff down all the time, but those are just games. In reality, these are different ways of approaching that problem, so that when that problem occurs, you're going to have different ways that you can deal with it. Because if you look at that as a risk, and I think you're very intelligent for understanding that that is a risk, people depending on you, you need to be able to start thinking about ways to deal with that risk. And shooting everyone in the head is not an appropriate solution. Okay, our next question comes from Dawn Logan. What are the most common mistakes that people tend to make when starting to prepare for economic downturn and collapse? Easily, basic. Too much gear, not enough food. Too much gear, not paying attention to their own health and wellness. Those are probably the biggest mistakes. Not putting their financial well-being and their physical well-being and their food preparedness in front of buying a bunch of shit. So those are probably the things that I see the most that are the biggest mistakes. And trust me, I've made all those mistakes myself. I'm not saying that I'm above that. This one is from Bay Annie Romad. Sorry, I probably butchered that. Okay, it says, hi Eno, I have several questions. Hope you have the time to answer them. Number one, did you ever see your channel growing to where it is now? No. So yeah, I'm really appreciative for everyone being here and stopping by the channel, so thank you very much. Number two, what did you set out to accomplish with your channel when you first started, and has the success of your channel impacted your initial goals since then? I didn't necessarily have a goal when I started out. I don't know if I've ever really had a goal, period. I've always just been doing this to have fun and because I enjoy it, and it's fun to do, and people stop by and watch the videos. That's why I've always done it. There's definitely certain things that I've wanted to do with the channel that I haven't done yet, and there are things that I've wanted to do with the channel that I have done and that I've accomplished already too. So there's kind of both sides of that. And is the success of your channel impacted that? Yes, definitely. I think I'm much more confident nowadays than I was when I first started out. That's the big thing. It's the confidence. I don't have the fear of creating a video that people don't like. I don't have the fear of saying something that people are going to think is stupid, because that's happened a billion times on this channel. I don't have the fear of turning on the camera and talking to it, or showing stuff or giving my opinion on things. I have a lot more confidence today than I did years ago, and I think that is probably the biggest thing that's affected what I do on the channel now. Whew, I'm starting to get hot standing in front of these lights. I got lights right in front of me so you can see me better, and it's starting to get a little warm. I think I'm gonna take my hat off. Okay, alrighty, back. There you go. I've reached a new milestone in my videos. I just did a wardrobe change. Okay. I feel much better now, thank you. So moving on with the same question, there's multiple parts to this question. Part three was, do you have any big plans or changes for the future, YouTube and personally because of your success? No, I don't think my success on YouTube has really been to the point where I would say I have any big plans or changes personally. I don't think I'm that big of a channel, but do I have plans for the channel itself? Yeah, I do. Most of my plans right now have been centered on upgrading equipment, upgrading video gear, sort of increasing my capabilities and things like that. It's also been a lot of planning for things that I want to do. It's also been about diversifying my footprint, if you will. I've been looking at, and I actually have already started this, mirroring content on other sites. So branching out into like Steemit, DTube, that sort of thing. Looking at other platforms to feature the content that I put here. Right now, I'm just in the infancy of starting to do that, and right now the content there is just mirroring what's here on YouTube. But I could see a time when there could be original content on those platforms too, especially if it takes off and it's successful there too, as opposed to just YouTube. The last part of his question is, I feel as if you have a very diverse audience and that And that's a credit to your ability to reach out to both beginners and veterans, preppers, survivalists, and bushcrafters. Did you have an initial target audience? And how have your followers helped evolve your channel to what it is now? Wow. Well, thank you very much. That's probably more flattering than it is a question. Did I have a target audience when I first started a channel? No, absolutely not. I mean, I didn't even start as a prepper channel. I started as a firearms enthusiast channel, and that was really my target audience, I guess, which really could be anybody, like-minded people who liked firearms and firearms videos and were firearms sports enthusiasts, and that's kind of who I was and still am, and that's what the videos were for. As my channel has evolved, as I've gone through different sort of things that the channel has been about, things that I've pushed on the channel, things I enjoy doing on the channel, it definitely has changed the audience that follows me. And every time I begin doing different things, there's always a certain part of the audience that will not follow me down that path, and there's always certain people that are going to be coming in new specifically because I do that. Lately I've been doing obviously a lot of subscription boxes, and so there's a lot of people that probably don't follow me anymore that used to back in my old Armory days, and there's a whole new crop of people that are following me now because they like the box reviews, and so that's that. And there's people out there that don't want me to stop doing that and look forward to every single one, and I appreciate that. So I think what I'm trying to say there is there's a lot of different, there's a very diverse audience there, and I think it's because I've done a lot of different things on my channel. I think if anything, the diversity of the audience out there, which there are people from all over the world that watch this channel, I think on one hand it's, again, sort of the same as the other answer I give, sort of giving me the confidence to be able to do the types of videos that I like to make without worrying about what people think about them, because I know that there are going to be people out there that love it, and there are going to be people out there who don't, and that's going to be true with every video. And I have the confidence to be able to put stuff out there and just let it ride and be what it is. So there you go. So thank you. That was a long question, but thank you very much. Okay, moving along. Oh, I like this question too. This is a good one. From DMH, this is for female preppers, do you think there are any differences versus males or specific considerations to know when prepping and planning, especially for solo female preppers? Yeah, I mean, I guess you can kind of take both sides of that. And yeah, I think there are some distinct differences, and yes, I think there are some universals that apply to everybody. Obviously, there are differences between men and women that would dictate women having to prep slightly different items than men. A few extra things you might want to keep around. So yeah, I mean, I think there are some differences there, and certainly, and that is even is at an individual level too. I mean, as individuals, we're not all going to prep the same thing. So anytime you begin to compare two different people prepping, you're going to come up with two different styles of prepping. And I think if you split it up into men and women, yes, I think there are some generalities that are going to dictate that women are going to prep slightly different than men. So definitely when you talk about prepping as a solo female, there are certainly some items when it comes to risk assessment that are going to be different. Just to give an example of this, the most common way for a man like myself, to be killed or injured as a result of violence, and that includes getting beat up or stabbed or shot or whatever, okay, is by a complete stranger, by someone I don't know, in or around a place that serves alcohol. So that includes a bar, a club, a sports arena, sporting event, anything like that. So the most common way that I could be injured or killed myself as a result of violence is by a complete stranger in or around a place that serves alcohol. So now that's not to say that there aren't other risks. Yes, there are, but that's the biggest one, okay? And the older you are, the lower that risk becomes. Women, it's very different. Women, as far as how they are most likely to be injured or killed as a result of violence is, number one, by a person they know, and number two, in their own home. So the most common way for a woman to be injured or killed as a result of violence is by someone they know. Typically it's going to be like a spouse or partner or boyfriend or ex-spouse or ex-partner or ex-boyfriend, or it could be somebody they work with. It's going to be somebody that they know, and they're going to be attacked in their own home. So it's going to be being beat up or killed by their husband or boyfriend or ex-husband or something like that. So obviously how we as men confront violence is way different than how women are going to confront violence. Now, this is just broad, risk assessment. I'm not saying that, especially if you're a solo female, probably that risk drops a little bit. But certainly this is, again, a situation where when you're looking at assessing risk, that assessing risk as a male is going to be different than assessing risk as a female. There are differences between. Not to say that there aren't other risks out there, and not to say that there aren't overlap between the two. Now we're getting back into that whole context thing. As a guy, the right person to go to teach you self-defense might be very different than as a female the right person to go to teach you self-defense. The person to teach you self-defense is probably going to be somebody with experience. You don't necessarily have to have military combat experience to be an absolute expert in teaching self-defense. Absolute does not need to be a military background, because there are many different types of violence in this world. There's military combat violence, there's domestic violence, there's criminal violence, there's all different types of violence. And combat military violence, yeah, a former military is a great person to talk to about that. Criminal violence, detective, police officers, definitely great people to be talking to about that. Domestic violence, again, police officers, detectives, domestic violence specialists, women's help centers, things like that, crisis management people. These are the types of people that you really want to be talking to about that. What are the warning signs about being in a toxic relationship? What are the warning signs you need to be on the lookout for? How do you extract yourself from a toxic relationship? What if you have kids? How do you get yourself out of that situation in a way that's safe for both you and your children? How you would approach self-defense as a female is much different than you approach self-defense as a male. And whose opinion you value based on the risk assessment that you do is going to change. So yeah, I mean, you can go to, the Bang Bang Shoot 'em Up Ranch and learn how to use your tactical rifle, and that's all cool and everything, and that's important, and I'm not trying to make fun of that or downplay it. I think that's very important. But on the other side, there are other forms and contexts of violence and things that we have to be concerned about, and risk assessments in this world too. And that's not going to be the solution for everything. So, there's not one hammer to nail all nails. So we need to be looking at different things. And when you're doing that risk assessment as a female, what are possible risks to yourself and your livelihood that you have? You might be having to look in different directions. You might have to look at different things. So yeah, so DMH, I hope that helps. Did that help at all? I hope that helps. I'm kind of talking a little bit more about mindset there than I really am a specific thing, like this is what women need to do versus this is what men, because that's really hard to do, because that's really sort of an individual basis. But I hope that helps. So I really do. So moving right along, we have Joshua Harvard. And his question, what kind of video equipment do you use to film your videos with? And how much time do you put into making videos? Is this a job for you or more of a hobby? Well, it's definitely more of a hobby. I don't say it's a full-time job. Absolutely not. What kind of video equipment do I use? Well, currently you are watching me through a Canon 80D with a Rogue Pro microphone attached to the top. So that's the setup that you use, and probably 100% obviously of the videos that you've been watching lately out of this channel have been through this camera. Not necessarily the audio though. The Rode Pro I've used a lot, but I have other ways I've been capturing audio in videos also that I've been kind of toying with. I have an overhead microphone here. I'm not using this, I'm using the one on the camera, the Rode Pro, but I also have an overhead microphone, like a studio microphone over my head here. And I do use that. I've dabbled with it in some unboxing videos, and I'm still kind of trying to see how best that works. I've had some other microphones that I've used too. So definitely different setups that I've used, but I've noticed that the Rode Pro is pretty good. It's not like the greatest audio ever, but it's pretty good, but it's really consistent. And you plug that thing in and turn it on, you know exactly what you're going to get. So yeah, so the Canon 80D, for years I used this guy. For years and years and years. That's a Panasonic HD SD90. I used that for many, many years. Probably, for those of you who've been watching my channel for a long time, you've watched videos through this camera for probably about 5 years. I use my phone. I've used my phone for videos in the past, and for all types of videos in the past, and I definitely will use that again. I think that's a great place. So yeah, and I use a Mac. I have a desktop here. It's a Mac, and I use iMovie to do all my editing, and looking at upgrading that very soon. So that's kind of there. A couple different tripods, overhead system that I'm working on right now to do some overhead shots. So I had that set up in the old place that I used to have. I haven't really got it up and running here, but I'm working on that. And the lighting I use here is the same as the lighting I used in the old place, just a little bit different arrangement that I have. And I don't know, it doesn't work as well here as it did in the old place. The old place, just the lighting, it just functioned differently for some reason. It just had a different vibe and different look to it. Here, the lighting's a little bit, I think I'm going to have to tweak the lighting a little bit to get the absolute best video quality off the unboxings and things like that. And they're really hot. I'm getting like a suntan stand. What's else? Last one. Oh, if there's anything I'm going to be adding, I do want to add a smaller format 4K camera too, to do video and pictures with. That's probably the next purchase I'll make. So. Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate it. Okay, and last but not least, we have a question from Christopher Lovejoy. And Christopher Lovejoy was the winner of the big giveaway. So we saved his question for last. Again, I chose these questions out of my favorite questions, and then I randomly chose the winner from this group. And Christopher Lovejoy was the winner of the big giveaway. So there you go. That was our big winner, Christopher Lovejoy. So this is the question that he asked. He said, I enjoy your videos, and I have 2 questions. Thank you. What is the reason that you prepare? So this was good. I didn't have too many people that asked me this. I had a lot of people, ton of people, that asked me how did I start prepping or how did I get into prepping. Sort of took that angle with it. I didn't have too many people. I think Christopher was really one of the only ones that I really noticed, anyway, that asked me this question is, what are you specifically preparing for? You know, I prep for really basic preparedness. So obviously, you know, we get some pretty brutal winters, so we have to have specific things that we do specifically for that. That's very high on our risk assessment, is brutal winters, so that's a lot of what we do up here. And then beyond that, you know, I have always prepped for and continue to prep for being sustainable and steady income streams and being able to provide for myself and my family, and if anything happens, being able to fall back and being able to maintain a lifestyle and livelihood that is sustainable and comfortable for us. So that's kind of always been what we've been preparing for. I'm not a doomsday prepper. I don't have like all these conspiracy theories and doomsday predictions of things that can happen. So, but again, that doesn't mean that I don't accept those as realities. I do try to cover all my bases when it comes to preparedness. I do try to hit all the different points of preparedness and prepping, and certainly, hopefully, be prepared for anything. So there you go. So the second part of Christopher's question here, and this is the reason why I chose it as one of the finalists, was he was the only person that asked me this question. What is with your name? Is it a nickname with significance, or does it have some significance behind it, some other significance behind it? Great question. So as you know, I use the moniker Eno, E-N-O, here on the channel. I don't do that to hide my identity. I don't make my identity known to the world, but I also don't actively like try to prevent people from knowing who I am. If you send me an email and I send you an email back, you're going to know who I am because I have my real name on my email address. A lot of people are going to start sending me emails now. So I don't, again, I don't use it as a way to hide my identity. That's the reason why a lot of people think I do it. It is an actual nickname that I have and have had for years and years. So in its basic form, Eno is one spelled backwards. Okay, that's what it is. It kind of has a bicycle industry connotation. It means something specific within the bicycle industry. To have, you know, a single speed, single speed track bike, fixie bike kind of thing. That was a big thing, and at the time I owned a bicycle shop, and so I just kind of picked up this nickname Eno. I don't even know exactly where I got it from. It just started kind of happening and people started using it. And so I wouldn't say that a lot of people call me that. It's not like, you know, Bubba or something like that. It's not that kind of a nickname. Not a ton of people call me that on a regular basis, but it is a nickname that I've carried for about 10 years. And when I started up my YouTube channel now 7 years ago, I began with just using my nickname. and it just kind of is always stuck, and I've always done it. So yeah, that's what it means, and that's where it came from, and it's significant personally to me. I don't think it's significant to the channel in any way, other than I just use it. But yeah, I think it's fun. It kind of adds an element of, I don't know, wonder to the channel, I guess. Mystery, I suppose. But yeah, it is what it is. It's what I've done, and I'm sticking to it. So there you go. So thank you, Christopher, for your question, and thank you for supporting the channel, and congratulations on winning the big giveaway. And a special thanks and congratulations to all of the finalists and to everyone who stops by and watches the channel. So we're still going to continue to do our monthly giveaways. So if you didn't win this one, don't worry. There's still plenty of giveaways to enter and to win. And remember, just since we started this giveaway, we've given away 3 other battle boxes and 2 other tack packs. So that's an additional 5 winners that we've shipped product to and have had winners for just since we started this giveaway. Plus we had Christopher that won this giveaway. So that's 6 people that have won battle boxes or tack packs or this big giveaway that we did just within the last 3 months. So we're averaging 2 people winning per month, and sometimes some months we do more than that. So we get a lot of people that win, and I'm constantly shipping stuff out. And so some people say, oh, I never win anything. Trust me, you probably have the best chance of winning something really cool on this channel than you do any other channel, because you know, the ratio of how many people are entering, you know, versus how many I do every month, the ratio is pretty good. So keep it up, keep entering into those giveaways. Eventually you'll get there. I am, however, I am kind of going to announce this now. This is not going to happen immediately, but I think in the future we're going to see some of these giveaways start moving around a little bit and spreading the love a little bit more from YouTube to maybe some other platforms too. So certainly I could see doing some giveaways on Patreon. I could definitely see doing some giveaways on Facebook. So you know, we do a lot of giveaways. See, right now I do all my giveaways on YouTube. I could definitely see the possibility of doing giveaways on other platforms. Not necessarily that I'm going to move specific giveaways from YouTube to other platforms, but I certainly could see involving other platforms in giving stuff away too, so that we're sort of hitting more people and having a broader, a bigger net, if you will, to get more people involved in what we're giving away. So if you haven't visited the Patreon page, you know, head over and do that. I don't shill for myself. I've never said in any video, you know, go pay me money on Patreon. I don't even mention it in any of my videos, but it's there. There's a link to it down in the description if you choose to go there, if you choose to support me on Patreon. I appreciate it. If not, that's fine too, but it is there. I think we could do some more things with the Patreon page and get a little bit more involvement, and then also be giving stuff back to the Patreon community too through that link. So follow me on Facebook too, or Instagram. This is the only video I can think of in a long time where I've actually said any of this stuff. Follow my social media. But yeah, you can hit us up on different things. I would probably, if I would go anywhere, follow me on the community tab here on the channel. I'm beginning to use that more and more, and working that into using it more as a way to communicate with you guys. So definitely, you know, follow the community tab too. I'll be announcing things on there, other things that we're doing here on the channel that will be fun. Also, you know, hit up the Facebook page too. That's a great place to be to get all the latest videos. And also, I'm going to be probably using Facebook more than anything else as a center for everything else that we're doing. I mean, I'll use the website too, dynamicprepper.com. So of all the different things that we're doing, Patreon and stuff going on there, and YouTube stuff going on there, Steemit and DTube and stuff going on there, all that will be sort of centralized onto Facebook. So we're going to be providing links and things like that to different things that I'll be doing. So for right now, obviously YouTube is definitely our focus, and we're just mirroring stuff on other platforms, but certainly in the future that could change, and the Facebook page is where you want to be to find out about all those cool changes. So there you go. Take it easy, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed this. I think we should do this more often. Thanks a lot, guys.